Welcome to the Village Roundtable podcast, where we connect students, parents, and educators with meaningful conversations about education, college planning, growth, and the unique community here at the Village School of Naples. I'm your host, Andres Gonzalez, Director of Marketing and Communications. Each episode, we bring in special guests to share insights, stories, and expertise on topics that matter most to our listeners. Whether you're a current family or considering joining our village, this podcast is your front row seat to what makes TVS truly special. Now, let's dive in. Hello, Knights Nation, and welcome back to another exciting episode of the Village School Roundtable podcast. I'm Andres Gonzalez, Director of Marketing and Communications here at the Village School of Naples, and today we have something truly special for you. This isn't just any episode, it's an extended episode, both in length and in number of special guests. That's right, today we have not one, not two, but three fantastic guests joining us. Today's topic? Well, it's an all-out celebration about one of the fastest moving games on the athletic field, lacrosse. First, we are thrilled to welcome a very special guest host, someone we all know, respect, and love, our very own Director of College Counseling and the founder of Quest College Success, Mrs. Sue Zumstein. But what you might not know is that Sue isn't just a college counseling powerhouse, she's also a huge lacrosse fan. In fact, she might just say it's the greatest game ever played. And today, she's bringing that passion front and center as she helps us dive into the world of lacrosse. And joining our super special guest host, Sue, in our studio is a dynamic father-son coaching duo who bring a combined 60 years of coaching experience to our roundtable. First, we have the legendary Kirk Ventiquattro, better known in the lacrosse world as Coach 24. He built the powerhouse program at Carthage High School in upstate New York, where he coached some of the best players in the game, including the renowned Powell brothers. With an incredible career record of 457 wins and a reputation for developing Division I athletes, he brings a wealth of knowledge, passion, and old school grit to the field here at TVS. And right alongside him, we have his son, Tony Ventiquattro, the three-time News-Press Lacrosse Coach of the Year and the driving force behind the recent growth and success of lacrosse at TVS. Tony is known for his high-scoring, fast-paced, offensive-minded coaching style. He ensures all his players can adapt to multiple positions on the field. Since joining TVS last summer as head coach and varsity boys lacrosse coach, the excitement around the program has skyrocketed. Now, we can't talk about lacrosse at TVS without mentioning Coach Michael Butler, the man who started it all by launching our lacrosse program. While he couldn't join us for this episode, we want to give him a huge shout out as the coach of our girls lacrosse team. His impact has been monumental, and we can't wait to have him on in the future. Lacrosse fever is growing at TVS. Parents have been asking, and we listened. With Kirk now coaching our middle school boys team alongside Tony and the varsity squad under Tony's leadership, the future of lacrosse at TVS has never looked brighter. Did you know that at the Village School of Naples, student athletes train and compete in a state-of-the-art $1.8 million track and field facility? It was built in 2022. The facility is fully illuminated by industry-leading lighting, ensuring optimal visibility for night games and practices. There's a buzz in the air, and it's only getting louder. So grab your sticks, throw on your helmets, and get ready for an action-packed conversation as we dive into all things TVS lacrosse with Coach Kirk, Coach Tony, and our special guest host, Sue Zumstein. Let's get started.
Good afternoon, everyone. We're here with a new podcast for the Village School, and with us we have Tony and Kirk Ventiquattro. And they are our new lacrosse coaches here at the Village School. And as a huge fan of lacrosse, seriously thinking it's just the best sport out there, I am so excited to see what you guys are going to do with the program here at the
Thank
school.
you for having us on.
Sure. So were you the guys who started out in Western New York running around with sticks in your hands as soon as you could walk?
Well, it was northern New York.
Okay.
Way up north, 30 miles to the Canadian border. By the way, do you know what the Canadian national sport is?
Lacrosse?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Most people would say hockey.
Yeah,
Which
no.
is also correct. There are two national sports.
Really?
What's the other one?
Hockey.
So all I envision are the Indians running around with the rock in the net playing lacrosse, because that's truly the homeland of lacrosse,
it's funny
right?
you mentioned that. What my reminder is his walk when he does his talk of how the game got its name. We grew up not far from the St. Lawrence River.
Okay.
So, and I've actually had a lot of experience with the Iroquois. I helped bring them some world games. But his speech would be how lacrosse got its name. And my early memory, he was a phys ed teacher for 30 plus years. When we did the lacrosse unit, him doing his patented walk. He's very animated when he talks. Typical Italian. Like I'm talking with my hands now, but if you want to tell her.
Well, they likened it to the bishops carrying crosses in their home church. That's where the cross got its name. And as a Christian fella, I really appreciated that. And so I introduced that to every kid. And like you said, I got that strut going, when I'm demonstrating to the kids. Now, in 1987 at our home school, which is Carthage High School, which the home of the Powell brothers and 40-some Division I players.
Wow.
I started a program and I didn't really know much about the game. My qualification was I owned a stick. So, and being a small town, a baseball player, I got my opportunity to coach a varsity sport. Now, I tell this story. It's the first time I actually ever asked God to direct me. I said to my wife, should I take this job? And she said, well, why don't you pray about it? And I'm thinking, pray about it. Well, I made the right choice because from that point on, the program was blessed. And player after player came through. And I was fortunate enough to have my son Tony and my son Mario, who continued our All-American tradition there at Carthage High School. So I'm fortunate, I made the right choice, took the right direction, always got that tie-in, the game of crosses and being a young Christian. And so that was cool.
That's fantastic. So, okay, where did you go to I assume then you continued to play in college, right?
Yeah, so I went and played college. The boys will learn, and anybody that's played for us learns. We're very competitive with everything we do. So certain schools recruited me, some did not. We were just discussing Delaware, who was on TV. That was one of my favorite visits. But I ended up going to UMass. They gave me a great scholarship offer. I was there for 2 years and learned a lesson of don't choose a college based on the coach. Basically I was going to play for Coach Shea, who went to Yale, and I didn't quite have the grades to go to Yale.
Are. Yeah.
So I went a year without him, and it really wasn't the fit for me, the school. I didn't actually know at the time what had come with my offer. I'd gotten in the Eisenberg School of Management, which part of my scholarship was a big deal as a freshman. But I ended up transferring to Cortland because they took a lot of my credits, and I finished up at Cortland.
Okay. So it's interesting now because the transfer portal makes it so easy to be able to flip-flop back and forth. Sometimes I feel like I'm watching college lacrosse and it'll be like, 2 years ago, wasn't he playing for Denver and now he's at Notre Dame, or vice versa? And it certainly has made it interesting in doing this. Let me ask you something. So, whenever I first was introduced to lacrosse, my son was in middle school, and the only thing around was an adult league. And here he was in 7th grade playing with a bunch of 20, 30, 40-year-old guys. Lacrosse has just exploded in Southwest Florida, but still nothing like it is up in the Northeast. I mean, what do you guys see here as feeder programs coming into our high schools? Being out of that as a parent now, I'm not sure what is available for younger kids. So do you guys have any sense of what that looks like in Southwest Florida?
Yeah, so it's changed quite a bit since I've been here. I was and have not been heavily involved in youth lacrosse because kind of the nature of the beast. So there's only one of me, basically. What we lack here, you liken it to the Northeast. I would say that we're even behind the other coast.
Oh,
but
really?
That's based on the dynamic of how people have moved to the state, is how we look at it. So if you look at the East Coast, basically from Palm Beach south, that's a lot of the East Coast that have moved here from the Northeast.
Yeah.
The West Coast is more Midwest, similar to how the game has gone. If you follow national championships, a lot of them were Syracuse, Baltimore, Maryland, those areas there. And then it shifted. Denver won a national championship a few years ago, which has shifted the dynamic of the growth.
Yeah.
Much like now the West Coast, California, a lot of these kids are on national TV. So people on this side, especially Fort Myers area, are Midwestern. and behind, they're not introduced. It isn't at their high school, so they don't get that youth development. Here in this area, there are some rec leagues, but there's a lot of room for growth. The one thing that we experience, the hardest thing to do is find coaches because nobody's experienced. I'm now that I've been here, I was 8 years at Bishop Rowe. I'm finally starting to get those guys back into town that are able to come and help out, but that actually know the game. That's the biggest thing holding us back now is lack of proper development. It's a lot of dads who are trying their best to help their son. But there are some programs. We run a club. It's called Team 24, based off of our logo is a 24 inside a Superman shield. Oh. And where that stems from, I think we're on year 13 or 14. He was diagnosed with stage 4 prostate cancer. Wow. And my brother and I developed this logo. Funny, I think I got it as a henna tattoo on a family vacation when I was about 12 years old. I got a 24 inside a Superman shield, which I thought was cool. But we liken that, it's red, which were our former colors at Carthage Comets, with the Carolina blue. And it's a 24 inside the Superman shield because my brother and I always viewed our dad as Superman.
Superhero.
So we have Team 24. We're on both coasts now. My brother's at NSU school in Davie.
Wow.
So we tap those programs, and we're trying to grow younger. Now that we're at the Village School, we see a big opportunity to grow the youth. We're looking forward to that. And he's seen kind of how the youth has grown here, but gotten a taste of how we can improve it as well now that he's helping out with the middle school team.
Yeah, I think that's the key, is to be able to start them at least at the beginning of middle school, certainly, and feed them at that point.
Up at home, we're neighbors to Fort Drum. And so you have a lot of coming and going.
Yeah.
And what was starting to happen at Carthage was, early on, we would get kids who'd come up and didn't have any or very little experience, and they just couldn't move along in our program. As things went on, the kids coming in were a little better. But what I struggled with was changing the fundamentals, the way they learned them and the way they're supposed to be. Now, does that mean there's only one way to perform the fundamentals? No, it doesn't. But there is the Carthage way, and or the way at this point that I've learned them. This is my 4th school in Florida that I've been a part of. I've been on 2 on the other coast. This is the second one on this coast. And like Tony was saying, I've seen the skill level really improve with the youth. Not that I spent a lot of time with them over the other coast that I didn't, but so far I'm pretty impressed with these young kids that I have. That in Tony's program, I'm here to help, and I said, let me start with the young guys, and that's working out. It's early, but these kids seem to really. I'm hard nosed, I'm fair, but I'm tough, and my expectations are high. And sometimes the first day I would have said, this might not work. But 2 weeks in, I'm like, this is working. So.
Stick skills. It just takes so much. I think that's one of the biggest things I always appreciate lacrosse is you have to have the legs of a soccer player, especially if you're playing midi, because you're out there, a lot of conditioning. But the hand-eye coordination, the stick skills, and being able to coach a team and bring it together whenever you see some of the plays come together, it's just mind-boggling to me. And I couldn't even fathom all that it takes. Just, you guys have been in a position of obviously coaching very successful players and very successful teams. I would imagine right now it's taking a little bit of patience to move things along and get it off the ground as you keep moving with it.
It's funny. Dr. Chapman challenged us at the beginning of the year for our one-word challenge. And that is my word that I chose for myself was patience.
I jokingly told Tony, my husband and I went to a lacrosse game last year, and Scott kept saying, pass the ball. And finally I looked at him, I said, I'm not taking you to any more games. We don't have a child here. You're not coaching. You just need to settle down a little bit. But, when you see lacrosse and you see really good lacrosse, to me, it's just jaw-dropping. The communication as to how kids can come together to make the plays happen. So let me ask you something. A lot of teams will have specialized goalie coach, and then specialized attack, specialized defense. How do you guys break that out whenever you're coaching, or are you just looking at the whole thing?
Well, when I was at Bishop Farrell,
Mm-hmm.
we grew slowly but surely. I would say we went from my dad and I hired him as an assistant, and then we picked up. I think the first year we had a dad on staff, and then we kind of grew from there. Right, as I mentioned, lack of coaches. By the time we finished, we had a JV program established as well.
Wow.
I think I had 6 coaches on staff. I had a goalie that came back and helped us out. Had a face-off specialist coach.
There you
so
go.
we grew it. Fortunately, we're believers. My dad says we prayed on it, but we're believers, and you're always where you're supposed to be. Everything happens for a reason.
Mm-hmm.
We had a sermon at our church a few weeks ago about God's playing chess while we're all playing checkers. We don't really know what game he's playing or how or why. We just are supposed to be there. So coincidentally, I bring my dad in, and we don't know how things are going to go. So I start to build my staff out. I called one of my former players who's in law school currently nearby, and I said, "Hey, I know you're in class, but if you could help me out, I'd take you whenever I can get you." He was one of my first players. He was an All-American for me at Bishop Farrell.
Wow.
And he said, "I'm very interested. I just am waiting for my spring schedule." So he called me as soon as he got his schedule. He said, "Coach, I'm swamped. Can't do it. I've got a guy for you." So I call him. We hit it off. He comes day one of practice, and he sees what we're putting in, and he says, "Coach, I'll be honest with you. It's not fair to me or the kids. I can't be here all the time with my job, but I have somebody for you." 2 weeks later, he ends up getting hired by the school. That's the kind of, you don't always know how or why things are going to work out. So he's a defensive player from Georgia. Now works and played at the school. Coach Ty, awesome guy, younger kid. And then I have Dylan Whalen, who's local. He graduated from Gulf Coast, a recent graduate from Florida Tech, Division II goalie. He coaches our goalies and helps run our defense. He's an offensive juggernaut. And I'm kind of the be all end all. There wasn't really a position I didn't play other than goalie. I think all my screws are tied up top. I say goalie's got to have some kind of screw loose. But that's kind of how we panned out, and I think he's been very happy with our help filling in. They're great fits. Show up all the time, follow directions, preach what we're doing. They're buying into everything we're selling. So the staff is the most important thing too. So
I agree with you 100%. I agree with you 100%. Do you guys have goals or aspirations to what you want to achieve? I have an idea how things went last year. Do you guys have any goals for yourself for this year?
Well, me personally, and I told the kids, all I'm interested in doing is helping Tony be successful somewhere else again. And that's it. I don't have any. I have nothing left to prove.
Sure.
I do this because there's only one thing in this world that I'm still pretty good at, and that's teaching the game of lacrosse. Everything else seems that we talked earlier seems to be going south and what have you, but I'm most comfortable teaching this game. And of course, who wouldn't want to see their kid be successful? Mario's successful on the other coast. He was the South Florida Coach of the Year. Tony's a 3-time defending Coach of the Year over here. I'm a proud dad, and I'm just trying to help. I said, I don't want any in-game varsity responsibilities. I don't want any of that. I've been there. I've done that. I said, I'm just going to help you build this program and sit back and just smile.
It is. It's a lot of fun. But at the same time,
always, we're a little bit behind in our development by now. We would have had a lot of things done. Typically what I do is I have my players make 3 goals, team-based, 3 personal-based. They share them with me. They see them all the time. I have goals that are kind of unwritten, but always posted. I've already achieved a few of them. That was get our first game under our belt, get off and running, and then make sure the middle school team is off and running, make sure we have both teams, which we've done. Staff is showing up all the time. The other ones, they're attainable goals, but I need to have the expectation meetings with my players, because if there's no alignment, we all need to be on the same page and cohesive. Otherwise, everybody's wasting their time. We're doing it for the wrong reasons. So it's a little bit early in the game for me to mention all of my goals.
How did conditioning go? Just out of curiosity, a couple of kids I thought, oh man, I haven't seen you out there doing much of anything, and all of a sudden we have 2 weeks conditioning, and then you're playing, and I'm trying to be positive. One of those might be one of the students that you and I were talking about earlier in a different conversation. I thought, man, it takes legs and lungs.
I'll keep the answer short. It did not go.
Okay. All right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because a lot of high schools are like, oh man, and colleges, we want you playing football in the fall and then lacrosse in the spring, and doing both that because of the conditioning aspect. And of course, we don't have football, but you can still get out there on the track and get your legs under you.
Plenty of other things that I grew up. I was a 3-sport athlete. Usually, I tell my kids, if you're not playing another sport, we do run some outside of the year programs that are not mandatory, but they're to keep you from losing your skill set. As you mentioned, it's important passing and catching. This is a time on task sport. If you're not putting in the time and energy, you're seasonal and you're wasting everybody's time. It is really a hobby. It wasn't a hobby to me. But from our standpoint, football, basketball, we play. I always say do it, because that way you're not playing for me around, and we're going to hate each other by the time you graduate. Unfortunately, for my situation, I had the same coach for all 3 sports all the way through. So, but my group, it worked out for us. We were successful in all 3. Sometimes it works out, sometimes it doesn't. But without those sports, I wasn't a great shooter in basketball. I learned to play better defense, be an assist guy. It opens up other avenues. And I remember an interview from Casey Powell talking the same about basketball. He wasn't a great shooter, but it opened his game. It encouraged him. Football increases the physicalness of It forces you out of your shell. You mentioned the likeness of our game. People don't realize it's called the fastest game on TV for a reason. So that's what I equate most of that to, and I'm sure he can attest to. He's a coach and he's a motivator. That's what he's best at, and that's why I have him here. It's an opportunity that I can't resist. I have to ask until he says he's had enough. But I also have a little bit of a carrot where I've got 2 girls at home that I can entice him with those. Hey, why don't you come down here, be a snowbird for a few months and take care of the girls on the weekends.
Who wants to be in upstate New York this time of year?
Well, we were just talking about it on the way down. My nephew lives about 60 minutes east of us. 240 inches of snow. Now we're not there right now where we are, but it's unbelievable. So it's 82, it's hot, it's muggy. Wait a minute. It's minus 20 at home.
Exactly. I told Tony, my older son went to Cornell, did not play lacrosse, and his first winter there was a complete shock. It was just like, whoa, how much could it really snow in upstate New York? And I think, whenever you think back about your connection to the roots of this sport is what I think makes it so fantastic, and what I think makes it so great in bringing it down here, because so many people don't understand the history and the beginning of this sport and how it started. I remember a few years ago, Albany was in the playoffs, and they actually still had kids on that team who were original tribes, in New York and playing. And that was when I feel like NCAA brought it all home and kept talking to everybody. And it seems to me they lost in Notre Dame that year in the playoffs of the NCAA, but it was just so cool to see that and think about the origins. We don't go back to think about that often enough. So a couple questions, and then I think we can wind it up. So are you coaching a middle school team and an upper school team, or are you combining everybody for this year?
We're doing a little bit of a hybrid.
Okay.
We're fortunate where the middle school has the schedule figured out, where the boys have the athletic period.
Right.
And that alleviates, it allows us to get that one-on-one time with them. So we're kind of hybriding it right now, but we'll eventually more of a split as the high school gets more set up. But we're very, very basic right now at this point. And the staff is working with everybody all the same is how we're doing it. But we plan to design it like that anyway. It's nice for the coaches because we don't need to be here at 3:30 again,
Yeah.
or at 5 o'clock at night. And unfortunately, we're not competing for the fields like we normally would be.
Yeah.
Which may change as we grow, but we can kind of stick our plant our flag in the ground and say, hey, this is our practice time. It's working out pretty well. We're used to this time of year 5 a.m. practices, which we didn't want to chase anybody away the first season. Make sure that we got it off the ground, but we like that because it's a little cooler that time of day, and you get it out of the way.
Yeah, and it isn't like it's a public school where their day starts at 7 o'clock. At least here, the bell isn't ringing till 25 after 8, so it does give everybody a little bit more leeway in the morning. Well, and I think in starting at the middle school, it's also going to give you just a great feeder stream all the way through high school for a few years to be able to build up that program.
Absolutely.
And then I know Michael Butler is coaching the girls for high school. Are the girls in middle school combined with high school girls also?
Yeah, our numbers aren't as great as they are for on the boys' side, and that's part of the growth of the sport. Youth lacrosse on the girls' side is way behind on this side.
Yeah.
So there aren't as many opportunities. There isn't the rec league like the boys have, like LELAX and the Collier Lax leagues. So the girls are behind, but those ones that are playing more for travel teams. So therefore they're higher skilled. The other thing is that you forget about is how maturing works. Girls mature a little quicker than the boys. So that physically they're more developed for themselves, so they can play at that level. Also, there's not as much physicality on the boys' side. And you look at our roster, I can't imagine one of our top middle school players who's in 7th grade going against our senior he's a specimen of a man. You know Danville. So.
Yes, I do. And you're right. I mean, 100%. There's usually such a disparity with the boys right now. There's no doubt about it. There really is. Well, as someone who, again, as we were jokingly, I love lacrosse, and not that I want to disparage any future plans at all, but in my mind, I think you should keep your flag firmly planted in the middle of that field, because I think lacrosse is so much more exciting than football. So much more exciting than football. And yes, there certainly is some contact, but not nearly as many head injuries or injuries like you see in football. I just think it's a tremendous sport. And I think it's more of a thinking sport too. Very, very much so.
Agreed.
So we are so excited to have you guys here, and I am going to come to more games, and if I need to, I'll duct tape my husband, but I'm sure things are going to be going great this year. I can't wait. So March 7th is our first home game.
Home opener March 7th.
Is that what you said? And who are we playing?
We'll be playing Lely Trojans, 7 p.m.
Okay.
We got some events scheduled. I'll have a food truck there. My buddy Paco's sending a food truck for us. Some of the best tacos in the state. That's
fantastic.
For sure. We'll have some youth lacrosse activities, and I know SGA is going to get heavily involved. We have a meeting with them tomorrow, so we're looking forward to it. We'll bring the crowd out. Lacrosse can be our football, is how we look at it. But excited to showcase. We'll get the modified kids out there, middle school kids, get them playing under the lights as well, and spark some interest and start growing this game at the Village School.
Oh, I can't wait. I am so excited.
And what I did was I managed it all. And I'll tell you a story that not many people have heard, and I sat on it for a long time. But when I first developed, or was fortunate to have kids developed, I had the #1 recruit in the country, and the word really hadn't got out yet. So I said to this individual, I said, make me a list of your top 5 schools, and I'll contact them. I mean, I'm a young 28-year-old man. I never had a kid involved in the recruiting process. I said, hey, I can do anything. This will be easy. The first guy I called, the first college coach, embarrassed me on the phone. Who are you to think, Division I players, and you pay this kid's education and this, that, and the other thing. So I called Casey Powell up on the phone. I'm about ready to quit this whole process. And Casey got right over. And Casey, being Casey Powell, he walks up. He said, Coach, where's that list? I pull it out of my pocket. He crosses them off the list, hands the list back to me, and walks away. He goes on to be one of the most recognized athletes to ever play the game. His brothers, even Mike more so. And this college coach who said no to me, and you don't say no to Coach V was Casey's philosophy. And hey, you said you're going to do it, let's do it. So I learned how the whole process from the beginning. Now, it's changed and it's different, and we talk some about that. But when we get athletes who are ready to play, and there's places to plug them in, and Tony will vouch for that. I mean, there's junior college, there's NI, whatever that acronym is.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
then there's Division I, Division II, Division III, and that's for both boys and girls. If a player reaches a certain level, there's a place for them, as long as if that's what they really want to do is play lacrosse. And unfortunately, most of it's in the Northeast.
It is.
We found with some players that Tony's had, and I'm listening to this process now. I'm not so involved in it, even though I still make a call, and and they take Coach V's call still.
It's a good thing.
And they'll say, well, we haven't seen the kid, or what have you. It's a hard process. It's a tough process, and it's getting tougher. But if you're willing to go someplace where you can play, I didn't play college athletics, and I miss that about my past. My boys have such a tie to the players they play with, and it helps the whole total college experience. You get the help in the classroom, you get the help on the field, you develop man-to-man relationships with those coaches. I missed all that, and to see these kids, that was all part of the beaming smile I had when Casey moves on. And I mean, in that class, we had kids go to Clarkson, who's one of the hardest engineering schools in the country to get into, and they got in. Two of my formal knuckleheads, I call them, because they were knuckleheads, they got in because of their lacrosse. So the scores lowered. One more story, and then I'll stop. And I got hundreds of them. So we walk into North Carolina with his son Mario. Mario made the top 40 recruits. Wow. So we went in and we're sitting in the house that Michael Jordan built. And there's 40 kids and their families sitting there. And Coach Haas at the time said, well, boys, I just want you to know, the minimum score, SAT score, to get into North Carolina is 1,400. And every kid's head went, oh. And I'm thinking, what am I doing here? And then he said, but I have 9 spots and I'd be making the number up. And he said a number, and I don't want to say something that isn't fact. And he gave the number, and everybody's head picked back up because they know.
NCAA sliding scale, right? Yeah, exactly.
So that's what playing a sport like lacrosse and being connected to guys with Tony's experiences can be really effective, if not so much right now, but down the road. So one of my visions is for Tony, to develop this school into kind of like the lacrosse factory, because he teaches the game right, he knows the game inside out, and he's connected with everybody at the highest level.
And we have the academics to be able to back it up, offering 19 AP classes every year. I mean, certainly it could be the best of both worlds. There's 100%. No doubt.
I think we're a bit of a hidden gem. My job here, part of my job, other than the technology side, is to get kids on campus. We started this weekend. We had a youth event, and people around getting texts from local players. We didn't know you had field there, or lights, and a track.
No.
So, but on the academic side, people don't realize what we can provide. We provide way more than people have any idea, including what you guys do in your department, which is the placement, which takes a lot off of my plate. Yeah. I can call the coaches, and I got to call to get the transcripts. But what people don't understand from a recruiting side, I tell a lot of programs that try and move in the area, it's hard to recruit a kid from Florida. They live in paradise. If you live in Southwest Florida, they got more money than the average kid in upstate New York. Not all of them want to go play Division I lacrosse. A lot of them are smart, as you know, and they're going for bright futures, which is hard to compete with.
Sure.
So in coaching 8 years in Fort Myers, however many, 10 years Sarasota area, it's 2% that want to go and play.
Sure.
And you can place those kids, but you can still use lacrosse as that extra boost to get them seen and into schools. But also, we provide other opportunities that boost your resume. So it sets you apart from the kid going to Florida State, Florida,
100%.
all of those schools, which they don't correlate. I was one of those kids, as I mentioned about UMass. I got into one of the best business schools in the country because I played lacrosse, and I didn't even know it at the time. I was a know-it-all. I kept him out of my recruiting process because I knew everything. No different than every kid that I ever get my hands on.
Yeah, right.
So and same with you. So I don't want kids to make the same mistake as I did, but I also don't want them to miss the opportunities that they have that they don't know about, and that's the hard thing, and that's what we're trying to provide also in the area. There are opportunities for everybody. The path isn't the same for everybody. No. It's funny, he overheard a conversation we had a week ago. We got some kids that were late in development, and words directly from a college coach's mouth. He asked me not to use his name, but the easiest way to get recruited right now is go enroll somewhere, play lacrosse as a walk-on or whatever, and enter your name into the transfer portal. It is the number one utilized tool for recruitment right now.
That's incredible.
It's easier on them to hook up with the club coach,
sure,
and roll the dice on a 16, 17-year-old kid when you can get an 18 or 19-year-old kid who's got the grades. They don't need to look at your test scores anymore because you've got a year under your belt.
Yeah.
But you also survived out of mom and dad's thumb.
Sure.
That goes a long way as well.
So that's a whole interesting aspect for me, because normally as we start a recruiting process, as you know, I've worked with kids with rowing and diving and lacrosse, only women in lacrosse, football, no basketball. But most coaches are trying to at least get a good idea on their teams by late September, early October. How many spots do they have? And some of these kids are like, what do you mean I can't keep testing till November, December? I just met with a group of freshmen this morning at Village School here in freshman seminar. And I said, if anybody in this room is thinking athletic recruiting, you need to let me know by January sophomore year, because I don't want to be backing into your SAT and ACT prep late. We want to be ahead of this. Let's knock it out this summer before your senior year. Let's get you where you need to be for those goals.
If you're testing your senior year, you might as well
throw in the towel. I agree. I had another one of my students is playing tennis for Barron, and she told me the Caltech coach was in touch with her and said, well, we either need a 35 on the ACT or a 1500 on the SAT. And I looked at her, I said, well, you're at a 1350 on the SAT. You know what you're going to be doing this summer, right? 150 points, girl. That if that coach is wanting you, she's giving you now, at this point in your junior year, where you need to be. At least she's getting some good measurable targets as to what she needs to be working on. Right. But for our kids at Village School, they get the test prep immersed in their school day. So if there's someone seriously wanting to go through, the process of being a student athlete in college, we just got such an ideal setup, because the curriculum that we offer, the curriculum of the test prep built into the same day, and then coaches like you guys working with the lacrosse team. I'm excited. So now that's my new goal, is that we get our first lacrosse college student.
Absolutely.
Before I retire, maybe in 5 years. So I think for our kids that are out there playing now, and their parents or possibly students that are looking to play at the Village School, what's happening this summer regarding lacrosse?
So the plan has worked in the past. I plan to stick with it. We will follow once our season concludes, which is early April. We will we'll take a little break, and then Team 24 will get fired up, where we run 2 days a week for about 8 weeks. We wrap before Father's Day usually. That way kids can go off and play. Anybody that wants to do stuff beyond that, we make phone calls and connections to get them. If they want to travel out of the state with some other teams, other players, we make those calls. But we'll also be doing a clinic for everybody, beginner to high school skill set level. I partnered with the Powells a long time ago. I actually helped Ryan get his company off the ground. I lived in Oregon for a few years. So I run a Powell camp. We bring some pros in. We'll do a 3-day camp the week after school ends. It'll be 9 to noon. That information will be posted on our website very soon as registration opens. So that camp will be open, and it'll be open to boys and girls.
I think it'd be really cool. I remember whenever I first fell in love with lacrosse, and I saw a bunch of little middle school bobbleheads fall in love with it, was during the men's NCAA championship. And I remember my son's coach drug us all to some sports bar and made sure that the lacrosse games were on every single TV, and sat there and fed those kids chicken wings and French fries and pizza. And they were all like, that's what I want to do someday. And it was so cool. So you need to let me know, because if you get the team together for like a whole rah-rah thing over Memorial Day weekend, that would be really, really cool.
Absolutely.
I would love to join you at that. I would think it was fantastic. So as a side note, Quest is going to be open all summer, Monday through Thursday from 9 to 5. So if you have any kids that you need to push in a direction of working on academics, you send them in to me. And if I have any kids that need to work on their lacrosse skills, I'll ship them outside to you, and you can run around the track a few times. How does that sound?
Sounds like a fair trade.
Okay. All right. Thanks so much,
Thank you.
guys.
Thank you.